It began as a beautiful snowfall, but by nightfall, the snow had buried more than just the world outside. It buried my sanity. Turn off the lights. Let the storm take your listening to another level. It began as such an ordinary day. The sun dipped below the horizon, and clouds gathered in the sky. When the first snowflake drifted into view, dancing on the air, we all watched with gleeful, wide-eyed anticipation. But that joy was not to last. The snow did not stop. This was no light flurry, but a relentless, merciless, and unnerving white tempest. Within hours, everything was buried under a thick, suffocating blanket. The power sputtered and died. The signal bars on my phone vanished. Our tethered to the outside world had been severed. I was alone in the house. My parents were away, visiting relatives in another town. At first, the solitude was pleasant. A warm mug of tea, the view of the snowfall from the window. But as the night deepened, a peculiar sense of dread began to coil around me. And then the sounds began. At first, I dismissed them. Probably just heavy slabs of snow sliding off the roof, or perhaps the creaking of tree branches burdened by the icy load. But these sounds were different. It was a kind of crunching, as if someone were walking on the snow, but with an uneven, shuffling gait, as if they were stumbling, or as if it were something that had never quite learned how to walk. I peered out the window. Outside was a profound darkness, the snow's whiteness offering only a vague, ghostly luminescence. Nothing moved. Then came the knock at the door. Thump, thump, thump. A heavy, wet, slapping sound, as if someone were pounding with fists caked in ice. My heart hammered against my ribs. Who could be out in this blizzard? Summoning my courage, I crept to the door and put my eye to the peephole. There was no one there, only deep, empty whiteness. I let out a breath I didn't realize I was holding and began to turn away, when suddenly a face filled the peephole. It was not human. Its eyes were utterly black, without pupils. Its skin was white as ice and cracked, like a frozen corpse somehow animated. And it was smiling, a smile devoid of any joy, but full of a profound hunger, an infinite, empty yearning. I did not scream, because my voice was trapped in my throat. I stumbled back, fumbling with the bolt, my hands shaking so violently I could barely slide it across. Then the sound came from the window. Scrape, scrape, scrape. It was standing there. Those black eyes were fixed on me. That terrible smile was still plastered on its face. It raised a long, thin, bluish hand, dripping with meltwater, and placed it against the glass. Where its fingers touched, ice crystallized instantly. I yanked the curtain shut and fled, barricading myself in my bedroom, pressing myself into the space behind the wardrobe. Outside, the roar of the blizzard was punctuated by those other sounds, the sounds of dragging and scratching. Then silence fell. I held my breath, ears straining. Nothing. Minutes stretched on. Had it gone? Had it all been my imagination? I'd heard stories of the strange effects a snowstorm could have on the mind. Gathering my courage, I opened the bedroom door and stepped out. The living room was dark. I grabbed a torch and turned towards the window. The curtains were shifting slightly. Steeling myself, I approached. The window pane, there was a small hole in it, as if punctured by something sharp. The edges of the hole were still fringed with ice, and through this tiny hole, a thin tendril of frigid air was seeping into the room.
It reached for me, carrying with it the very cold I had felt from its hand, the same emptiness I had seen in its eyes. A sharp, biting cold shot through me. I flicked the light switch, but the power was still dead. The heater was off. The temperature in the house had plummeted to a dangerous low. In the torchlight, I saw ice beginning to form along the edges of the window frame. It must have been 20 below outside. Then, a tremendous crash. Crack! A massive shelf of snow had slid from the roof. I froze. Those were the sounds I had been hearing. Snow sliding, trees groaning, the very structure of the house contracting in the extreme cold. I looked at my hands. They were trembling. I felt lightheaded. Perhaps from lack of oxygen. The snow must have blocked the ventilation. I stumbled to the bathroom for water, but the taps were dry. The pipes had frozen solid. Back in the living room, I looked through the peephole again. The same empty whiteness. Had I really seen a face? Or had the intense cold, the isolation, and the fear simply conspired to play a trick on my mind? I stayed awake the entire night, jolting at every sound. A knock at the door, a face at the window. Each time the torch beam revealed only emptiness. Morning came, but the snow continued. Looking out, I saw the road was completely impassable. No cars, no people. Then I saw it. A branch from the tree in front of my house had snapped and lay on the snow. Its shape was uncanny, exactly like a human hand. The ice glazing it made it even more bizarre. Was that what I had seen at the window last night? Had the wind and ice forced it to tap against the glass? 2 days passed. The snow continued. My food supplies were running low. The cold was becoming unbearable. I piled on all the clothes and blankets I could find, but it made no difference. On the third night, I heard the knocking again. But now I knew what it was. Snow falling from the roof, branches snapping. Still, those empty eye-black eyes, that icy smile, they lingered in my memory, though they were fading, like a dream upon waking. I kept trying to reassure myself. It's all in your head, just the effect of severe isolation and a blizzard. I checked my phone repeatedly, hoping for a signal. I just needed to call my parents once, just to hear they were safe, that they were coming. On the third afternoon, the storm briefly abated. I looked out the window, and my heart sank. A branch from the neighboring pine tree was broken, its shape uncannily like a crooked arm. And near the door, there were strange impressions in the snow, exactly like the tracks of someone stumbling. "No," I said out loud, "the storm made these. The wind sculpted the snow." But still, when the blizzard picked up again in the dark of night, I felt it, something watching me from within the storm itself. Every crack and rustle played on my frayed nerves. I tried to convince myself they were all natural sounds. On the fourth morning, I heard a noise, faint, from a distance, a car horn. My heart leapt. I rushed to the window, pounding on the glass, shouting, but the sound died away. Perhaps that too had been an illusion. By evening, as I ate my last tin of food, I realized my body was failing. My fingers were going numb, my head spun. The cold was clouding my ability to think. The fifth night was the longest. The power had flickered back on, but the heater was broken. I was buried under a mountain of blankets, but the cold was in my bones. Suddenly, my eyes were drawn to the wall. There, in the frost patterns, I saw a face. That face. I blinked, and it was gone. "You're not real," I whispered, my voice trembling. "You're just my fear, my own mind turning against me." Morning revealed a still, quiet world. The storm had finally ceased. In the distance, I heard the grating sound of a snowplow. They were clearing the roads. When the knock came at my door, a real human knock from the rescue team, I opened it, my whole body shaking. They led me out, wrapped me in warm layers, and gave me a hot drink. You had hypothermia, the doctor later explained. The extreme cold and isolation can have profound psychological effects. It was all a hallucination. My parents returned. They were safe. I told them everything. The sounds, the face, the knocking. They held me close. It was your mind playing tricks on you, son. You were alone and you were terrified. A week later, when life had returned to normal, I was sitting in my room. It was night, and a light snow was falling again. I looked out the window, and then I understood. Those empty black eyes were in fact my own reflection in the window pane, distorted by the frost that had coated the glass. That icy smile was my own smile from when I'd first seen the snow, a smile of joy frozen on my face by the cold.
That knocking, it was the sound of my own heart pounding in terror. It was all my own imagination, the fear of being alone, the dread of the unknown. And yet, even now, when I see snow falling, I feel that lesson living inside me, because the greatest terror was never a monster in the storm. The greatest terror was the one I created within myself, the fear that came from my own mind. And I know that the next time a blizzard comes, I will ask myself, is it real, or is it just my mind? Perhaps that question has no answer. Perhaps we all surrender to our fears from time to time. But now I know the line between reality and delusion is as thin as a pane of ice, and sometimes that pane can shatter.